Hello foolish mortals, and welcome to another custom repaint tutorial. Today, our lucky doll is a Cleo Denial. In today's repaint, we'll be turning her into another Fortnite skin. My current favorite, the Pastel skin, which is way past Easter by the way, but who's counting? It's currently my favorite skin to rock, and I just love the color scheme. I do occasionally stream on Twitch, so if you guys want to follow my Twitch, I'll link it down below as well. Anyway, and with that, let's go ahead and get started. We begin by removing the factory face. To do that, just take a Q-tip dipped with either acetone or nail polish remover and swirl it around on the face. To keep the mess contained, you should swirl in a circular motion, but I just kind of go ham and go wherever I want. Next, just taking some scissors, we go ahead and chop that hair off. I personally like to save the hair, but this hair was so just greasy and short, there was just no point this time. Try to cut the hair as close to the scalp as possible. Then, I just take a screwdriver and get out all the extra plugs and gunk and junk. This part is super stress relieving for me. I'm not sure why, but I just love pulling out the plugs. This isn't particularly necessary, but I like to cut a slit in the back of the head and get all that excess junk out. I just use an X-Acto knife and cut a C-shaped hole. Ugh, gross. This is why I clean the inside of the head. Then, just taking some super glue, we go ahead and close the gap. And again, this isn't necessary, but I'd like to do it anyway. It just makes the base feel so much more clean, if that makes sense. Moving on, I just painted the undershirt directly onto the body. So when I first initially looked at the skin, for some reason I thought her undershirt was pink, like a light pink, but it's actually more of an off-white, and I just didn't notice it, and I just kind of rolled with it until I was almost completely done with the doll. So, my bad. Jumping right into the face here, I wanted to start with her cute little bunny nose. I just used a brown acrylic paint and kept it on like the rim of her nose. I also used one of the thinnest brushes I own, and with a steady hand, I really took my time. Next, taking a dark brown pencil, I darken her eye outlines. I didn't record this, but to make her eye whites really opaque, I just used a white acrylic paint. I continue to go throughout and just darken and lighten whatever areas and spots I deem necessary. Right here, I'm just carefully forming her eye wrinkles. And then I gave her a super thin pink eyebrow. This was my first time creating a thin and long eyebrow as opposed to my super thick Instagram eyebrows that I typically draw. Then I start to work on the inner parts of the eye, and I start with forming the iris. Of course, art is subjective, and you can form the eye shape however way you want. I prefer thinner and longer eyes. To me, I just feel like it gives a more elegant, mysterious look on this doll. When it comes to darkening the pupils, I start with a very light hand and slowly build my way up whenever I see it necessary. I also add eye whites pretty early on in the face-up process. That's just to see if I like the placement. I went ahead and blushed the face and did the other eye off camera. And here, I'm just trying to make the eyebrows as even as possible. Honestly, this might be my new favorite go-to eyebrow shape. Taking a black watercolor pencil, I again darken the outline of her eyes. And her face is complete. This hair I'm using isn't exclusively made for dolls. It's actually just old hair that I got from one of my wigs. To form her helmet, I just smooshed some Model Magic clay onto her head and formed it until it made kind of a helmet shape. After about 3 days, it still felt kind of like a stale marshmallow, but I guess it was dry, and I just started to paint it with this hot pink color. I made her a simple crop top out of some hot pink scrap fabric, and just hand painted all the little dots and accents. and I just tried my best to paint it exactly how it looks on Fortnite. I'm quite pleasantly surprised at how the end result closely resembles the actual skin. I mean, at the end, it really looks like you just took the outfit from the game and put it directly on this doll. Also, yes, I'm aware there's a hole in her crotch, but I just can't be bothered to fix it. Okay, so this is actually my favorite part. To create the glasses in her goggles, I just water marbled some googly eyes. And it worked! I am way too lazy to try to form resin and all this other stuff, so your girl has to get creative. Even with a matte paint, there was still enough shine to peek through to make it kinda look like goggles. I just water marbled a bunch of pinks and reds and it turned out pretty cute. Afterwards, I just topped it with a glossy varnish and it gave it that nice little bit of shine that it needed. I also formed the goggles with Model Magic as well. Here, I'm just painting the nose pink with an acrylic paint. I'm by no means a sculptor of any sort, but I'm actually pretty proud of how these goggles turned out, and the helmet as well. And personally, I think using the googly eyes was a great choice, but again, that's my personal opinion. I decided to paint over the blue bits that I previously painted with a thin layer of watered down pink. When it was dry, the layer underneath looked raised, and I liked the effect. Using Model Magic again, I formed the eggs that hang off her belt. I just squished it around until it was a rounded shape. I definitely recommend Model Magic for smaller projects. It's really light and relatively easy to work with. For the shoes, I'm just using these boots I got from a stock box. So because of that, I have no idea who these belong to and I'm not sure which collection it came from. So sorry, but if you do happen to know, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Using a dark green acrylic paint, I used that as the base color for the shoe. I also wetted my brush to mix the water and the paint. Doing this will reduce the look of any paint strokes when it's finally dry. I used more of a foresty green in the middle and a little bit of a lighter green on the outer parts. I didn't even have to paint in the front part of the shoe. It was the perfect pink color already. At the end, I really like how these boots turned out. I ended up painting the heel a matte gray too, even though it was already kind of silver. I just think it looked better. And I'm glad I did too. It just makes the boot look more uniform and put together. More military-esque instead of fashionable. After this base layer dries, it was time to move on to the camo pattern, which was actually pretty fun because I've never had to paint camo before. Essentially, I just painted a bunch of little blobs in different shades of green. For my first set of blobs, I started with this light green color. I only had 2 shades of green on hand, so to get this color, I mixed the darkest green with a white. And as you can see, I just continued to paint these little bubble blobs in no particular pattern, just with whatever my heart told me, I guess. Then I just used the dark green paint that I used on the tongue of the shoe. I'm just doing the same thing here as well, just painting random blobs in random places. And then finally, I just used some gray paint to make some gray blobs. Man, how many times did I say blobs trying to explain that? But finally, that's our camo pattern. Turned out pretty good. Here, I'm making the tree leg pattern thing on her leg. I started off with just a rectangular foam piece and carefully used a lighter to bend the edges. Then used a pencil and an X-Acto knife to scratch in what looks like tree bark. I cut out 4 long rectangles out of this faux leaf. This is for the blades of grass that stick out of her leg armor. I originally tried to use printer paper to try to mimic the blades of grass, but it was just way too flimsy, so I'm glad I had this faux leaf hanging around. I just pinched and bended it, and cut it to get the exact shape I wanted. Once we put it all together, she's complete! So, what do y'all think? I am insanely happy with how she turned out. Outfit-wise, it's almost exact to the original skin. I absolutely adore the color scheme too. The light pinks and the light blues. Anywho, that's my second Fortnite girly whirly, and let me know what you guys want to see next. Don't forget to subscribe and boop that like button. I'll see you in my next doll custom. Bye for now!
Video ka na video.